Hi everyone, my name is Gerrit Lehr from the worldwide multi-cloud strategy and architecture team, and I'm going to walk you through a brief video of the component and user experience for cloud provider customers covered in the Modern Apps Business Opportunity white paper. So we'll look at Tanzu basic clusters deployed in VCD VMs, as well as NSXT for network. So we'll log into vCloud Director as a tenant user, and since that VCD environment is enabled with Tanzu Basic, the customer can select the Kubernetes container cluster plugin and create a new cluster, selecting vSphere with Tanzu, adding a name for the cluster, and selecting the virtual data center to deploy that Kubernetes cluster. We're also giving that customer the option to select a pre-provisioned policy, as well as the Kubernetes version that the customer would like to have deployed. And the next option is about the amount of control plane nodes and worker nodes. So this could be redundant control plane nodes, or maybe just one control plane node, and in this case, 3 worker nodes. And then we can allow the customer to select predefined virtual machine classes for both components. Select the predefined storage policies and storage classes for both worker and control plane nodes. And then in the last step, the provider's customer can review all the configurations and click Finish to have the fully functional Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster deployed into the virtual data center. As a next step, we want to add monitoring capabilities for that Kubernetes cluster with vRealize Operations Advanced Edition. For that, we're going to select an existing pre-provisioned Kubernetes cluster from VCD, like the one we have deployed before. And we select download the kubeconfig file. So this is the configuration that a customer needs to interact with the Kubernetes cluster. And it contains all the information about how to connect to the cluster, as well as the certificate and authentication data. And we'll need that to monitor that cluster later on. So the next thing we need to do with those information is download the vRealize Operations Management Pack for container monitoring. So this could either be done by the tenant themselves, or it could be pre-provisioned or managed by the service provider as a managed service. So we select the latest version from VMware Cloud Marketplace, and then we switch over to vRealize Operations. We log in, and then we select administration, repositories, and we're going to add that downloaded management pack to vRealize Operations. So we select add or upgrade in the repository window, and then we browse through the downloaded management pack file from the VMware Cloud Marketplace. The file gets uploaded to the vRealize Operations server, and once we accept the end user license agreements, it's installed into the vRops instance. So now, when we switch back to the vRealize Operations accounts, we can add a new account of the type Kubernetes adapter. And what we want to do now is provide the information from the kubeconfig file that we just downloaded. So we'll call this VCD TKG. And then we need the information about how to connect to the Kubernetes control plane. And this is what we get from the kubeconfig file. So we insert the master node URL. And we also need to configure the login credentials. So in this case, we're going to select the credential type client certificate authentication. We provide a name, and then we copy all the information from the kubeconfig file around client certificate and certificate authority data. And with that, we can connect to the just deployed VCD-based Tanzu cluster. And now when we switch back to the vRops dashboards, we have a new entry point called Kubernetes environment. And from there, we can see the VCD-based TKG cluster, all the nodes that are on there, as well as drilling down into information on each specific worker nodes, like utilization or what kinds of pods and containers are running on those particular nodes. So this gives us a really powerful monitoring tool for Kubernetes that is also integrated into the rest of the provider's management infrastructure if that's based on vRealize operations. So the customer gets all information about virtual machines, applications, and Kubernetes from vRealize operations. As a next step, we want to add the capabilities to deploy containerized applications on top of that Kubernetes as a service offering. So we're going to do that through the Bitnami application packages and App Launchpad. So this time we're going to log back into VCD, but as a cloud provider administrator. And we can see that we have different organizations deployed in that VCD environment. And when we move to the App Launchpad configuration field, we see that under access management, we don't have any App Launchpad catalogs associated with any of those organizations. So what we're going to do is create a new application catalog. And from there, we have the option to either select containerized or VM-based packages from the VMware Marketplace, but we could also provision our own provider-owned Helm chart repository, which would typically be what a provider would do in order to host customized Helm charts for containerized applications. But for this demo, let's select all the applications that are available from the VMware Marketplace through Bitnami. And as you can see, there are plenty of Helm charts for container deployments like Apache or Apache MXNet, Contour. There's Drupal, there is Elasticsearch, FluentD, all kinds of packages that a provider might choose to make available and accessible to their customers. So for this demo, what we're going to select is MongoDB as a NoSQL database. We're also going to select MySQL as a relational database, as well as Nginx as a web and application server. We're going to select the packages that we want to make available to our customers. And then we associate those with a new catalog that we want to provision for our tenants. So we give it a name, let's call it demo catalog. Under access management, we need to publish that newly created catalog to our tenants. So we select the demo catalog we just created. And now we can either select, just one organization, or maybe we want to publish that catalog to all of our tenant organizations. So now our tenants have access to the applications that we have just made available to them. So we log in again as the tenant administrator for one of the organizations that we have just given access to App Launchpad catalogs. And in there, when we move to the App Launchpad, we can see the three applications that we just deployed: MongoDB, MySQL, and Nginx. So let's deploy a MongoDB Helm chart into the Kubernetes-based TKG cluster. So again, we give the instance a name, we select the TKG cluster on VCD that the customer has just deployed, and then we launch the application, the pod instances get deployed, and now it's available to the tenant. And we can obviously do the same thing with every other application. For example, MySQL, if the customer also wants a relational database. So with that, we can easily create a very wide catalog of self-service modern application components from Bitnami or other Helm charts. We can also add additional tools for developers like a hardware registry or CI/CD and DevOps tools. Now, as a next step, we might want to turn this into a managed services business by using vRealize operations and the True Visibility Suite. So as an example, we're going to deploy a multi-tier application called the Acme Fitness app. So that consists of different components, one of them being a MongoDB, as we can see in the Kubernetes YAML definition file in here. And another one is a Postgres database. So again, there could be different components in such application. This is just an example. And what we've done now is we added the true visibility suite management packs to vRealize operations, much in the same way as we did with Kubernetes. So we downloaded the management packs, and now we can add a monitoring adapter for MongoDB, for example. So we add information for that account, and we don't need any agents or nothing else in the container itself. It works natively with that container pod that we can deploy from Bitnami. So we add the login information as well as the IP address and port to connect to that MongoDB instance. So again, we select authentication required, we give the credential a name, and then we add the username and password for the MongoDB administrative users. Again, this could be done by the tenant itself, but it could also be done by the provider in a managed service fashion, where the provider takes over the management of those deployed application instances. So we validate the connection. Connection is successful. And now we can see that we have different accounts in this demo for Postgres, or in this case, MongoDB, where we can see all the details around the caching, the performance, the network traffic in and out of that MongoDB instance. We can also see alerts for MongoDB. And the same thing, of course, works with other solutions like MySQL or Postgres databases. So as you can see here, we have information around transactions and so on. What we've done now is we've created a fully functional Kubernetes as a service stack, as well as applications and a managed services platform for those applications. What we want to do in the future is add capabilities around the entire Tanzu portfolio, which we're going to cover in a follow-up video and white paper. So your call to action today, if you enjoyed this video, is download the white paper, as well as getting more information from cloudsolutions.vmware.com and engage with your local account team to get started on the topic.